there, it's Amanda here from Lolli Lulu Crafts, and today we are going to be making a card using the latest collection of Sue Wilson dies, or at least some of them. I did a video just recently showing you the latest collection, and if you haven't seen that and want to see it, it's like a little haul stroke review video. Then, so if you're on YouTube, click the link below. It will take you to the blog post that corresponds with this video, and on that blog post I will add in the video from the other day with the review of the latest dies, etc. And obviously, as always, on all my corresponding blog posts you'll have further information about this card, about products used, and most importantly loads and loads of photos. So if you're over on YouTube, make sure you do go across at the end of the video to have a look at the blog post. Anyway, that aside, what we're going to be doing today is making a sympathy card. I found the other day when I did a sympathy card it proved really popular. A lot of you were really pleased to have some ideas on that. But what I would say about this particular one that I'm going to be making is that this can easily be translated for any other type of card, any other sentiment. I mean, I'm going to be using this lovely peach and grey Creative Expressions foundation cardstock, but you could change the colours, you could even leave these colours but change the sentiment and it would still work. I mean, it would be quite nice just as it is for, you know, an anniversary card or a happy birthday card. But if you wanted to brighten it up, you could change the colours but leave the actual design exactly as it is. So don't think just because I've labelled it sympathy that you have to do it as a sympathy card. Anyway, so we're going to be using, as I said, this cardstock, the Noble double pierced rectangles, the New Zealand collection, Auckland and Hamilton. Okay, so let's get crafting. Okay, so I've got here my platinum machine. We're going to be using that today. I found that the regular platinum plates and the Sue Wilson dies cut just fine. There is a little bit of a trick to make it work on some of the bigger dies, but it's a really simple thing, and I think I've mentioned it actually, but anyway. So what I want to do is, first of all, I've taken a piece of my peach cardstock, and I worked out that for the matting and layering that I'm going to do, that I needed to cut a piece that was 4 1/4 by 5 1/4. So that's what we have here. So I'm going to be taking that one first, and I've got here I've actually got my big plates here, but you could use your smaller ones at this point. So I've got that here, and I'm wanting to cut a nice aperture in the center of this piece of peach cardstock, ready to put my sentiment on the piece underneath. So for my aperture, I'm going to be using the Hamilton, and I'm going to be using this I love this little shape, and the whole New Zealand collection, as I was saying in the original review video, it has this shape dies and it creates like a little nesting set with them. And then we also need to use our Auckland collection here, and what I want is this lovely lacy piece here. So we're not using the cutting edge at all, and we're not using this cutting edge at this point in time either. So we're not cutting out on the inside edge, won't cut, nor the outside edge. We're literally just cutting out the laciness of it, as it were, if you want to call it that. So I'm going to position that so it's nice and sort of central. So you can see at the moment it's not evenly spaced, so we just want to move that across and just make sure it's nice and even, and then get my tape here. Now it's probably going to be easier for you when you're doing this because you will have this flat on your table, not perched up in the air like I've got it right now. I don't want that. I'm going to tear this piece in half. It's just a little bit too long. That's better. Let's do it like that. I don't use tape very often, as you know. I usually use my magnetic plate, and I could have done here, to be honest, but anyway, Okay, so then I'm going to take this piece here and I'm going to centralize that, and I'm going to get some tape for that as well. So we just want to make sure it's nice and even. That looks good. And then we're going to pop a bit of tape there and a bit of tape there. Okay, so that is pretty good, I think. That looks alright. Okay, now the trick I found with the Sue Wilson dies, and in fact, to be honest, I think with any die that isn't a Spellbinders die when you're trying to put it through the platinum. I know that we mentioned in my original platinum video that Sue Wilson and some of the other Creative Expressions family have been using their Grand Caliber die plates, and I was told by Spellbinders, I was left a message by Spellbinders to say that they don't recommend that. So what I would say is, these guys are all doing it, so I'm assuming that it's working just fine because they haven't broken their machine. However, that is kind of at your own risk. So you can do it, but the thing that I found when I tried it and I put it through with the Grand Caliber plates is that I ended up with effectively a Grand Caliber. I ended up with the same problems that I was getting with the Grand Caliber, in that there were spots that didn't cut as well. So when I use these plates, it's much tighter, it goes through and it cuts through first time. So the way I found to make sure that you didn't get, when you put it through like this, straight on like this, and it then hits the rollers, it gets really tight and it doesn't like it, and you think that it's not going to go through, and it's quite possible you could bend your dies because it really is quite a big job for the machine to work through that. So I found all you need to do is just turn your die so that when you come to the rollers, it hits a small point first and then gradually comes across the rest of it, and then it goes through like a complete dream. So just make sure that it's turned like that, and then you'll be fine. Now obviously if it's a really large die, you can probably still turn it just a wee bit. It only needs just a little bit so it's not head on. Okay, so then we're just going to pop that through. So you can see it's nice and strongly going through, but it isn't going and not wanting to do it. Let's try and grab that. I've got the camera the other side, so it was hard to get hold of. So before we separate it from the plates here, what we want to do is just look at it from the other side before you take it out these plates, and if there are any parts that aren't cut, you could pop it through. I have found that with this combination of plates that I've not once had to put it through more than once, even with something as intricate as this die. Okay, so here it is. Doesn't it look absolutely gorgeous? I really like that. So that's that one done. Okay, so now we're going to be using our Noble rectangles, and I've got two here. This is the largest one and this is the fifth one down. So we're going to start with the largest one. Now I find that these, as I say, cut fine through even something as large as this, because all you do is just twist it very slightly and it will be fine. Just as much as that is enough just to get it through without there being a problem. So you don't need to be like massively trying to turn it. So if you thought, oh, a large die, that this, you would have to use your Grand Caliber plates or not be able to use this machine with, then I've not found that the case. Okay, so I'm going to put my regular plate, my cutting plate, my piece of card, my die just slightly off squiff. I'm going to just tape it down so that it stays squiffy. Makes it sound like it's a drunk die, but anyway. Okay, and then just another piece up the top, and then my top plate. I just want to make sure that's in. There we go. And then pop this through. And you can see, whoops, my mat's moving underneath, but the die is going through fine. It's a little bit tougher than if you had smaller die that you could turn a lot more, but it does go through and it's not caused a problem as far as I can see. Oh, apart from the fact I can't get it out because the camera's in the way. Okay, and then you can see that just is there. Oh, I was going to say it's just going to pop out, but it won't because of the tape. So that's that piece cut, and you've got the lovely piercing holes on the side, the pierced holes at the side there. I am going to cut a second one in this size. Okay, so that's that piece cut as well, so I think that's come out really nicely, so we pop that to one side. And then we want to cut out, I want to cut out a little frame to pop up on here. So for that, you're going to use the dies from one from Hamilton and one from Auckland, and then what you find is they mat and layer up. Now I think there's one that will go between that as well, but you can use that like that and that will create a lovely little frame. So we know the smaller one is our aperture size and the larger one is just going to sit slightly, let's get rid of that one, so you can see that one just sits slightly inside our lacy piece there, so we're still going to see like a little edge, which I think is going to look really nice. So we're just going to cut that out. So using my magnetic plate and then an acrylic plate and then a scrap of card that I had of the grey, and then pop down this piece here. Now sometimes the magnetic plate can sort of push the dies around, so you may still find that if you've got two together like this, they kind of, the magnetism kind of sometimes can work against you, so you still may want to just tape it down to be sure that it stays where you want it to stay. And just stick that bit there, and then just pop the lid on and pop it through the machine. Just peeling off my tape very carefully, and there we've got this lovely frame, and look at the edges around that frame. It's made a really nice frame there. Okay, and then actually I've got another one of these in the peach. These are the same size, so you could use those for something else. Don't normally hang on to things, but that's a nice one to hang on to, I think. Okay, so that's our frame cut in the grey card. I then want to cut the frame in this foam here. So I'm just going to get some scissors and I'm going to cut this. It's actually got adhesive on one side. Sometimes my foam doesn't have the adhesive, it just has the foam, but you can use it anyway. So I'm going to pop that down and then pop that on top, because we're going to use this to 3D our little frame, because then you know it's a perfect fit and you haven't got to sit there trying to make a bit of glue not stick out the edges or... Okay, now we may want to go back again on this one because it's foam, and I think one layer will be enough, but we'll have a little look. What we think when we sort of pop it underneath. And again, I'm going to keep this piece because that might go nicely under one of those spare pieces that we've got. So that, because it's grey as well, look, when you put it to the side, it's not going to show through as something really awful, some awful colour now. So that's that done. Okay, now while we're onto the foam, I want to take a piece of this grey and my Noble Square that I cut, and cut a piece of that. Okay, so here it is. I'm just going to see if this piece will fit on here. Just, yeah, so that's going to be good. Okay, I'm going to use my larger platforms because I need to just give it a little bit of a twist so that it's nice and easy to go through the machine. And again, this is just so it will layer up underneath my noble square that we've done in the grey, just to give that a bit of a lift, and then just twisting that, popping the lid on, and then winding it through. Like so. Oops. Okay. Now if you have foam that hasn't got any adhesive on, it doesn't matter because you can just use your own adhesive. But I just find that I've thought that this works really well underneath. It actually looks really cool, really picks up that markings, but it just works really nicely under your stuff. Instead of using, if you're going to use like foam pads, these are quite cheap and it's quite easy to do. You can then cut it to exactly the size you want, and so I find that works quite well. Obviously if I'm going to be using my 3D glue gel or whatever for whatever reason, because I want a bit more height or I need to put some pins or something in, then that obviously isn't going to work, but for this I think it's doing good. Okay, so that's that. What I want to do is cut a piece of peach just on my trimmer, just to sit slightly smaller than this. This is 7 by 8, so I'm going to cut my peach to 6 3/4 by 7 3/4. Okay. I wanted to emboss this peach piece of card that I cut out that's to go on my base grey layer, and I've got here the Sue Wilson tapestry embossing folder, and I just thought that went really nicely with the design of the dies. I just thought it worked really well. So pop the piece of card inside the die, and then according to the instructions we put our base plate, our die, and then our embossing folder. So no, try that one again. We put our base plate, embossing folder, then our cutting plate. Oh dear. And then it should, as long as you don't put the embossing folder right at the very edge, it will go through just beautifully. Okay, so just pop that through, grab that out, and a beautiful deep emboss. Isn't that beautiful? I think that looks so nice. So that's that piece embossed, so we'll put that to one side. Okay, so now we need to make a back to our base of our card. Now the base of the card I'm going to use is this 7 by 8 piece here. I think it'd be quite nice to have it opening to the side. Now we're going to be doing it like my easy peasy card method, but we're going to sort of do it back to front because I wanted this piece cut. Normally you would have this piece with the extra bit and folding around behind the back of the card, but because of the way we wanted this pierced piece on the front here, I'm going to actually put the foldy piece down the inside here on the front, so it's not going to be a problem at all. So we're going to cut this to 7 by 9 because the 7 is here, so we still want it 7 high, but we need it not 8. This is 8, but we want the extra inch, so we want it 7 by 9. So then just take your card and score it at the 1 inch mark, like so, and then just folding that over, and then just taking your score tool just making sure that you keep those edges all lined up. There we go. And then that will just, you put some adhesive down there. You could make that a bit smaller if you preferred, but you'll just put that there and just stick that to the front. And there's our card. Okay, so we'll let that dry, and then while that's drying we'll construct the rest of it. Okay, so I have stamped my sentiment into the center here using my Stampin' Up! Basic Grey Archival ink pad and a paper tray ink sentiment, and I think from a set called Out on a Limb sentiments. It's a really nice set, and I think using the grey has made it a really nice softer look. I then stuck this piece down. I just glued around the edges using my Cosmic Shimmer, and I put a little piece of adhesive onto here and just daubed onto the lacy parts so that that got a bit of adhesive as well, and then I just popped it on top. What I want to do now, because I want this piece to be dropped down, is I want to get, I was thinking that the frame would give that a sufficient look, but I really wanted it to look more drop down than that. So I'm actually going to take my die here and I'm going to cut that out of the center. So it should, I think it's this one. Yep, so we're going to pop that in there with a bit of tape just to be sure it's in the right position. And you can feel that it's caught onto the piece, into the peach, sort of where it's slightly raised with the peach piece. Okay, but just to be sure it holds, I'm just adding a bit of tape. And my little plate, my magnetic plate, a clear acrylic plate, put my die down, and then my other plate, and then just run that through the machine. I'm going to take it back again because it is double thickness, so I want to be sure it's cut right through, and then just before I take it off just double check, and it has. Okay, so that's just taken that off. Okay, so I also should have, what I should have done was put this on the back so that it lined up, and cut this out at the same time, but it may have been just a bit too thick because this is my foam layer for this section. So I'm just going to stick this down onto here. Okay, so I just trimmed a little bit of the foam around the edges because it was just, once you pressed it down, it's just a little bit tight. That's why normally with this foam I would go down a size if possible, but it hasn't been possible on these. Okay, so then I want to take that die again and just pop this into the centre. Now it should actually just stick all by itself because one, there's the magnetic plate there, but also that piece is actually sticky. So now we've got our foam on here and we've got the centre cut out of the foam as well, so that's all good. Now what I wanted to do, I wasn't originally going to do it, but when I started looking, and sometimes that happens when you sort of start looking at the card, you think, well, I'll just do a bit more. So now what I want to do is actually cut out this Hamilton die. I just think this is going to look really nice over that kind of lacy piece, slightly raised up, and just really nice bit, sort of tone on tone still. So we're going to use the peach. So we've got our outer die edge here, the sort of, as I call it, the lacy piece, although in this case it's sort of more swirly than lacy, and then the inner piece, because obviously we still need that aperture, and then I need some tape to hold these all in position, because the magnet will, when they're so close together, it tends to push a little. I think that'll do just fine. And then pop that on top and then just run that through the machine. And then back again, just because it's easier. then just check that it's all cut out, which it is, and lift. And then just peeling off my bits of tape. Take that centerpiece out. Isn't that just gorgeous? And then you see, I think that is going to sit just so lovely just here. If I can just raise that up. So I was thinking about how I could just hold that piece up without putting a solid layer behind, and I realised that we're putting a frame across of grey on top of it. So if I cut another piece of foam out in the grey, another frame, so it's exactly the same, and it will fit underneath, the other one will fit on top, so it won't look like you've got anything, you know, it won't look any different, it won't show from the sides. I don't mind the sides not being stuck down, I think that's going to look quite pretty. So we've got another frame, and we've got our piece here, so that frame can sit underneath. Now we obviously can see that frame, but we're putting a frame on top, so it doesn't matter, because then it's going to get covered up like so, and then that piece of foam will just raise that up. Okay, so I cut another piece of peach card just under a quarter of an inch under the 7x8, and then I put that lovely Auckland die just in there, just to add a little bit of something to the centre of the inside, because otherwise it's just like so decorative on the outside and nothing on the inside. So now let's finish off our outside of our card. So I've got my lovely piece of embossed card here, so you want to make sure you use wet adhesive when you're using embossing a piece of card, because otherwise it just doesn't stick properly. And make sure you put plenty on, because you've got lots of dips and valleys, so you want to be sure. I need to move my bracelet because it's going to dip in the glue. And then you want to pop that onto the front, making sure that it's just inside all of those lovely little pierced pieces, and just pressing it down to be sure that it's properly stuck. And then you can start to see how when you open it, it just looks really pretty. Okay, and that lovely embossing, there you go, you can really catch it now. Okay, so then we've got this section here, so we want to put this to one side for a minute, and we want to grab this piece here. I've already, as you saw, stuck the foam here on the back of this piece, and we've got our little sentiment piece which is going to sit much lower. So then what we want to do is we want to put the first foam frame down onto this piece. So it's got, as I said, adhesive on the back already, but I'm going to just add a little more using Cosmic Shimmer, because I want to be sure it's nice and strong, and I don't know how strong that sticky adhesive is. So okay, and also it gives you a little bit of movement time if you do it like that as well. So when you pop it in position, sticking to my fingers, we can just wriggle it into place like so. So that gives us our frame that's going to go underneath this piece. So then that piece comes on next. I'm just going to give this a little bend. Sometimes what happens when you use wet glue, it starts to curve. So it's there. Okay, and then we're going to take our Hamilton, I think this one is. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to just put adhesive onto the frame, and then any part of this that touches the frame will be stuck. So, and the rest is just going to be loose and and I think that's going to have a really nice effect. Okay, and then we know that that piece will line up again with the inside of the frame there, and we're just going to add a bit of adhesive to the top here. There's some coming through, but we want just a little bit more. And then again, getting my sticky bit here. I don't need to add any more adhesive to this because it's already there. And then we just want to make sure, really what you want to make sure is it's sitting in the centerpiece is what counts. The rest will sort itself out. Okay, you want that, it's just that center section. If you get that right, the rest will sit in the right place. And now you see that beautiful piece, this die here, and I'm just going to slightly curve it upwards so that we really get to see it separate from the rest. And doesn't that look absolutely gorgeous with that on top like that? I wasn't originally going to do that, and I just thought it needed something extra, and I think that's really worked well. And then turning this last frame, which is actually card rather than the rest has been foam. I'll just wipe that up so it doesn't go on anything. I'm going to stick that on top. I mean, you wouldn't know, and that's the beauty of using the grey foam, is that when it shows from the sides and stuff, because you've got quite a lot of depth here, that it will still just look nice. It will still look part of the card. But if you haven't got foam, build it up cutting lots of pieces of card and stick the cards together. You probably only need, I say lots, it's probably only 3 or 4 layers for each piece of foam, so it's not too bad. And then that is, you can see it's quite a bit of depth, and that glue will all dry clear, so that'll go away. But you can now see from the side all that grey, whereas if you'd used white foam tape or whatever, it wouldn't have had that, and so it just, I think, looks a bit better for that. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want this in the center of our card, and I'm going to use my adhesive Cosmic Shimmer here. Okay, so let's put Cosmic Shimmer all over. This is the foam on the back here. And you might see it's a bit scruffy on the edges. That's where I just trimmed it a bit to make sure it didn't pop out from the sides. Okay. And now I think you can see what I'm saying before about it would be perfectly suitable, this card, I think, for any kind of occasion. It doesn't need to just be a sympathy card. I think actually, even in this colourways, it would work just fine as a birthday card or anything. I'm going to pop this down. Now I'm actually going to put the glue in the center here, so that as I push it down, I'm not, if I put the glue on here, it might touch stuff that I don't want it to touch. So just pushing that in position like so. Doesn't that look great? And I love that depth, you see, and that's what I was really after, and that's why in the end I cut that through again, because I just thought having that extra bit of depth just gives it a bit of something. Okay, so I think the only thing I want to do now is add a couple of pearls. I've got some grey ones. I'm going to do it on the inside ones, but because it's got, I was going to say because it's got the embossing, but it hasn't actually on this one, on the inside pieces. And I'm just going to, there's an extra drip of glue there, so just wipe that up. Okay, and then I'm just going to pop those down. I like to always add that extra adhesive, even on pearls. I want to be sure that they are going to stay where I put them after I've put them there and the person receives the card. There we go. And I don't think I want to put any on the outside ones. I think that just accents that centerpiece even more. Not that it needs a lot of help, does it? Because it's certainly doing a good job all by itself. Okay, so that is our card all finished. And I think that looks so pretty. I hope you do too. I'm really pleased with how that's turned out. And I think it would look really nice in a different colourways as well. You could really brighten that up. And here is the inside. And you can see now by just adding that in just how nice that looks. Okay, so thanks so much for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed making this card with me, and I will see you again soon. And don't forget to click on the link to go over to the blog post to see lots of photos of the finished project. Alright, thanks so much for watching. Bye. Bye.